Well, what a delight and an honor to have back with us today Kate Obenshain. She is the author of Divider in Chief. We talked to her about that book, The Fraud of Hope and Change. But most recently, she's put out a op-ed piece on The Blaze, Obama's Still Tone Deaf on Women. And I think our time together with Kate today is very timely because she's got her fingers on the pulse. Kate, delight to have you. Where are you today?
I'm in the swing state of Virginia today.
Oh, you are one of those important states.
That's right. You know, it's kind of nice. We get all this attention now. It's great.
How are the ads? Are you able to handle all the ads?
You know, I think everybody is done with the ads. There are so many, and you just literally have to hit the mute button because we've heard it so many times. But unbelievably as it is, there are people out there who haven't made up their minds yet, so it has to happen.
Wow. Well, Kate, how did the president lose a 15-point lead with women? And I find this interesting because today, earlier in our news program, we were talking about the various things, and I made the comment, and I now have gotten all kinds of emails and texts on it. I said, I don't think the president has lost it necessarily on his policies or necessarily on his negative ads, even though those are certainly working against him. I think he's losing it because he has a condescending attitude about everything.
I think you are exactly right. You know, he had that 15 to 18 point lead as long as Mitt Romney didn't have the opportunity to come back and refute the vilification that had taken place. Obama's strategy has been to attack, really suggest that Mitt Romney is not fit for the office. He hates women, he hates poor people. It's just this bizarre rhetoric intended to keep people's attention focused away from his ideas. Then, when the first debate came about and Mitt Romney was not the monster that he'd been portrayed to be by the Obama campaign, women sat up and said, wait a minute, you know, this is not a guy who's trying to drag us kicking and screaming back to the 1950s. He doesn't seem to despise women. I think at that point there was a great awakening compared to Obama that night and in the subsequent two debates where he didn't present any ideas. It was still the constant attack compared with Romney, who was composed, dignified, and full of his plans for the future. Yes, he took Obama to task on the failure of the past 4 years, but then he turned around and talked about what he would do to make it better. All along, Obama has been trying to incite this fear among women. And I think the Democrat National Convention with Sandra Fluke, all the NARAL spokeswomen, the constant emphasis on abortion and birth control, which it seems to be what the Democrats think is all that women care about. I think that really pushed them to the edge. And then you had Stephanie Cutter, the deputy campaign manager for the Obama campaign, coming out and saying, oh, women don't care what's happened over the past 4 years. Basically, women aren't even aware. And that sort of condescending attitude, playing to the lowest common denominator, has really offended women.
Wasn't there an ad that said, vote your body parts?
That was a cartoon that was on Obama's website, and it said, vote like your lady parts depend on it. That was a stunning condescension to women. It was offensive for one thing. Mm-hmm. And I've heard a lot of folks say since then, you know, I'll vote like one of my lady parts tell me to. And we conservatives call it a brain. It's been that steady, the binder, the brouhaha over the binder comment when Mitt Romney said he was going out and actively looking for women to have serve in his cabinet, something that feminists and women alike, women of all political persuasions, endorse that notion, and yet they tried to turn it into a liability for him. I think that that's sort of the silliness that they're engaged in when the economy is falling apart and women are suffering disproportionately. Women are just saying, I have had enough. I want a grown-up in the White House.
All right. Now, boy, that's a great comment. I want to come back to that. So you're really, what you're doing here, Katie, is you're helping us understand two things. You have a president that is extremely condescending against the very group that helped them win the first time, so now women are waking up to that. But when we do our research here at theDove with radio and TV, generationally, with generational science and even neuromarketing, there are two things that really pop out. And one is that women's number one emotional concern is security, and that security is tied directly to financial or the economy. Is that
Right.
a key point here?
It is a very key point, that and the sense of security when it comes to foreign affairs. Who can handle it? Who's being honest with us about it? But Romney's done a great job of pointing out the lack of security that exists for women right now as a result of this administration, that we are experiencing the highest poverty rate for women in 17 years. I'm a single mom, and among single moms who lead households, 40% of those women are living in poverty. That is a staggering number. The gas prices, the rising gas prices, food prices, all these skyrocketing costs are hitting women particularly hard. But you know, it's that, but it's also something I wrote about in my book, Divider in Chief, where from the beginning, right after this president was inaugurated, and his beautiful speech about how he was going to bring us together and listen, especially when we disagree, he immediately began to attack Republicans viciously, personally. Gone was any notion of working across the aisles. And in 2010, women voted for Republicans in the highest number in decades. And so I think that at that point, they said, you know what? You were not honest with us about how you were going to conduct the presidency, yourself in the presidency. You weren't honest with us about how you were going to turn the economy around and provide that security for American families, basically by not bankrupting the country. And then women came out in droves and said, we supported you the first time, but we want to send a loud and clear message. We want a change of tone and tenor, and we also want a change of your economic policies. Obama has not listened to them on anything.
All right, do you think this swing from Obama to Romney, where he's lost this incredible lead, is a recent swing, or has this been a gradual wakening up of women of what this president has done to the women of this country?
I think it's gradual. I think it started really in 2010 during the midterm elections when women rejected Obama. And then the reason why we saw the 15-point lead there for a while was that the scare tactics were working, that when Romney wasn't responding, wasn't able to respond with that one-on-one debate format, then I think that women really did start thinking, oh my gosh, maybe he is this beast who wants women barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen.
Right.
And then when they saw him and they realized, well, this is ridiculous. We are being taken for fools again. And then just the steady, condescending attitude has built up finally. And then there were such obvious offenses. The ones that I just mentioned, the life of Julia on his website, on Obama's website, where he portrayed the life of this woman, animated woman who needed the government from cradle to grave. That is condescension. It wasn't the life of Bob, by the way. It was the life of Julia. And women said, nah, we've had enough.
All right, what do you think about this teenager ad that's out there that popped out over the last day or so? And she said she wanted her first time pause to be voting for Obama.
On so many levels, I'm speechless. When I wrote that article about a couple days ago, when I said Obama is tone deaf on women, clearly they're not listening. They're not understanding. They're thinking all women are like Sandra Fluke, and I'm sorry, I can't even remember this girl's name. I know she's a big HBO star who's in this ad. Right. It is incredibly offensive. And as a mom of teenagers, I look at it and think, you know, we moms and dads are out here trying to get our kids through in a turbulent economy, turbulent social situation. We want them to get through disease-free, pregnancy-free, preferably, with some sort of moral code to guide them. And our president comes in. And I don't know if they think that we're going to take it as some sort of a joke, but it is incredibly offensive to undermine our children's intellect, our young people's intellect, their moral code that their parents try to pass along to them, suggesting that this really is the shallow way in which young people see the world. I was interested to see my children's response this morning. I showed my 15 and 14-year-olds the video, and they shook their heads and said they think that's all we care about. And it really is what the liberals and the Obama campaign, think that that's all that young people are motivated by. I really think young people are going to, they might chuckle a little bit, but I think they're going to be offended. I think particularly the very young women who this ad is intended to reach are going to say, wait a minute. Aren't half of our college peers unable to find a job? Aren't college tuitions skyrocketing? Don't we have more student debt than ever before? I think those things are going to hit home.
Before we take a break, let me ask you this, Kate. Do you think the presidency is recoverable? Because it's fallen to a level of disgrace that saddens all of us. We don't want our presidency, no matter who's in that office, we don't want that position to be degraded the way that it has now.
Absolutely, it is recoverable because of America's greatness, because of the inherent greatness of our people and the greatness of our traditions and our founding, really. I think that's why we saw the Tea Parties rise up and this incredible generation of Americans who had been pushed too far. They were not interested in holding up placards and yelling on a Saturday, but the American people have a sort of deep reverence for the gift of freedom and the gift of their presidency. And you look and see how Ronald Reagan restored dignity and power to the White House after an abysmal period with Jimmy Carter. You see how Bush restored it to some degree after the escapades of Bill Clinton. Absolutely, it's recoverable. We just need a leader with dignity and presence and respect for the institution of the presidency to come in and help us restore that.
Well, we're going to continue on with our very special guest today, Kate Obenshain. She is the author of the book Divider in Chief, The Fraud of Obenshain. There's a picture of it there on the Dove TV. And let me encourage you to check it out at Barnes & Noble, Amazon.com, and get a copy of that. It's a great read. She's done her homework, and she has recently, and she writes for The Blaze, the website The Blaze, and she's come out with an op-ed piece, Obama Still Tone Deaf on Women. We're talking about that. And Kate, I kind of set you up with a hypothetical. I know that it's hard for you to imagine, but you know, if you was given the opportunity to coach the president in the next 10 days to get the women back, what would you tell them?
Okay, if I was being facetious, I would say keep doing exactly what you're doing.
Yeah, right.
Exactly what I want him to do. I would say change tact dramatically. Start speaking to us like we have the same intellectual capacity that you do. This is in part a case of the intellectual liberal elite condescending to the common people who cannot possibly grasp the nuances. But you know, part of Obama's problem with my advice, which would be outline your plan for the next 4 years and in an intelligent, as detailed as possible manner, and give women some hope. Show that you understand the quandaries that they face, the difficult times that we're experiencing. No more patting us on the head and saying it's all going to be fine. It always is. But part of the reason why he can't do that is that Obama's plans would be rejected by the American people. A lot of folks are saying he doesn't have a plan for the next 4 years. He doesn't have anything. Oh, yes, he does. He just cannot tell us what it is, because it is that forced redistribution, it's equalizing outcomes. That is antithetical to what the American dream is all about, and the American people would reject it. So that's why he can't talk to women in a respectful manner. I think in part, liberals really do see women as having a very limited perspective, believing their concerns run the gamut from A to B, abortion to birth control, and that really is all that motivates us. I would say take Romney's tact that he's had from the very beginning, where he has said women are concerned about the economy. If he really begins to believe that and to convey that, then the American women might step back and say, okay, maybe we'll give you another chance. He's not going to do it, though.
I want to come back to something you said earlier, Kate, and that is that the other part of the security equation is national security. And we have watched a mess. And I don't know why, quite frankly, the Secretary of State isn't being called to resign, and why the president isn't being impeached for openly lying to the American people. What is it that they're hiding in Benghazi?
Well, I think they're hiding a lot in Benghazi, but I think the whole reason for the cover-up is to cover up the fact that the entire foreign policy philosophy has been a disaster. The policy has been that the sheer force of Barack Obama's personality is going to be enough to bring our enemies to their knees, is going to be enough to have terrorists put down their arms and begin loving America because we're so open-minded and tolerant. That is naive. It is a cataclysmic philosophy that goes against everything we have ever known. The notion, as he said a couple of years ago, we might have some ability to negotiate with the Taliban, to have talks with the Taliban. That is nuts. When you hear somebody say that and then turn around and talk about a Republican war on women, by the way, how ironic is that? But everything this president has done, from his policies with the Russian reset and then telling Medvedev that he'll have more flexibility after the election, that is a sign of pure deceit. As well as what's going on in Benghazi, the notion that he is covering something up, that he is operating under the American people's radar in hope to accomplish whatever his goals are. A lot of people believe that he thinks America needs to be brought down a peg or two, that we're that colonialist country. We should need to stop dictating our morals to other people, which of course we don't do. And I thought that Romney was brilliant on that. But in so many areas, this foreign policy of this administration has been a disaster, turning our backs on our allies, on Poland when it comes to missile defense. And you can bet missile defense is on the chopping block when it comes to negotiating with the Russians, they are laughing at us right now. The notion that we're going to have negotiations with Iran, and I think a lot of people are extremely concerned about that, given this president's tendency to have unrealistic beliefs, hopes, and aspirations for our enemies. And the very fact that the president turned his back on those democratic, loving Iranians who are willing to go and risk their lives in the streets a couple of years ago, I think that has the American people stunned, frankly, about his unwillingness to stand up with those who are willing to champion freedom. And women overall see that Iran is a serious, serious threat, that the rise of radical Islam and terrorism and al-Qaeda cells, that is a huge threat. It's a threat to our children. Yes, we want to be out of all these wars, but we don't want to set the stage for an even bigger military engagement in 5 to 10 years and send our children trotting off to face the Taliban and al-Qaeda and all the other crazy radicals in the Middle East.
I think we're just stunned that we're being openly lied to. And by the way, it came from our Secretary of State, who's a woman. I don't know, did that play into the women factor at all in this campaign, you think?
No, I don't. I think Hillary Clinton she's doing only what she needs to do. I think Hillary, I thought, was brilliant in the way she took responsibility for that, which she really didn't do, of course.
Right.
She just made the pretense of falling on her sword, and it made Obama look like a coward, not being willing to stand up and man up and take responsibility. But I think Bill and Hillary know exactly what they're doing, and they are trying to undermine Obama as much as they can without it being completely obvious. President Clinton's comments the other day about how Obama hasn't been able to turn the economy around and how he thought he was going to cry when he talked to that man who was concerned. That was a total setup. So I think the fact that Hillary Clinton is a woman and she's of high position in the administration, I don't think that's having much of an impact because she's not willing to get out in front and try to motivate women who are drawn to her and her candidacy. And frankly, she might think that Obama's being a bit condescending as well. We might know that in a couple of years.
Well, they didn't get along during their own campaign. They were at each other's throat, but now here she is working for him. And I thought the comment of her saying, well, I'll take full responsibility, forced him to come out and say, wait a minute, the buck stops at my desk.
She really took that moment to look like a hero.
Yeah.
And, I think the reason she's not being called to account, for one, Republicans obviously want to hold Obama accountable, as well they should. He is the president and head of that administration. But she's also got this sort of, for whatever bizarre reason, this untouchable aura about her. She has become so popular in this country, partly because Republicans don't know how to attack a woman when they're in a leadership position. They're very nervous about it. You attack their policies, you attack their philosophy, because that philosophy is pernicious to us and pernicious to our country. But I don't know that we've entirely figured that out yet. But now is the opportunity for Republicans really to step forward, as I believe Mitt Romney has done, and champion women, elevate our conservative women leaders and say, look, we have Kelly Ayotte, Nikki Haley, Susanna Martinez, these incredible women within our party and our conservative movement. When you do that, you have women who haven't really ever considered conservatism before. You have them sit up and take notice that, hey, here's this guy Obama condescending to us, taking us for granted, frankly being crass and crude about women's concerns.
Right.
And then you have this guy who's championing these articulate, bright, conservative women, talking about the economy and how it's impacting women, wanting to put women back to work. I think that is going to create this seismic shift in this country. And I think the radical feminist movement is in for a tremendous shock in about 10 days, but certainly during a Romney presidency, as the entire discussion is going to shift on women.
It appears that Romney's going to win. I just hope it's a margin that is lawyer-proof, so we don't get into some kind of a mess. Let me just switch you for a couple seconds over to the House of Representatives. Why do you think that Speaker John Boehner, and now that he's gotten this incredible margin since 2010, hasn't been more aggressive against the president?
Well, that's an excellent question. I think that he has been aggressive during when Congress is in session. Look, they've put up a valiant fight, and they have not let the president get through with rescinding the Bush tax cuts. That was quite the battle. So I would say that I think they have been somewhat aggressive. Congress is always tricky. I always want the Republicans in there to be far more aggressive in articulating our ideology. I was all for the freshmen that came in on the Tea Party wave to have far more representation. And there is always this pushback. And look, there's something about power, and there's something about wanting to hold on to it, and a bit of resistance to new ideas, and also not totally understanding not having figured out how to convince the American people that our perspective is right, particularly when you had this very popular president in the White House. But he's going to stay popular if you don't push back with your ideology, with your ideas, just like Reagan did. That is the only way we bring people to our perspective. And you'll notice whenever conservatives are championing their ideas, as Paul Ryan did in a very courageous way, liberals always start hurling invective, the name calling, because they know from experience that their ideas are no match for ours.
Well, you are a delight, and thank you. I so enjoyed our time together. I want to encourage our viewers and listeners, check out the book if you haven't already done so, Divider in Chief. There's a picture of it there on the screen, and by Kate Obenshain, and you can get a copy of it at Amazon, I'm sure at Barnes & Noble as well. Check it out, and then read The Blaze, because she's a contributor there as well. Kate, thanks. You're a hoot. We'll get you back soon.
Thanks for having me.
Okay.
God bless you.
You too. God